Good evening and welcome to the first virtual ISACA Member Awards. My name is Giancarlo and I will be your MC and Program Director today. We would like to acknowledge the attendance of the past and present board directors as well as the past presidents. Please enjoy the evening with us. Today is a celebration of the hard work and talent of every person who form part of this organization. This year has shown us flames, ladies and gentlemen, and we can all agree that we were pushing our boundaries, pushing to the limit, stretching ourselves to be the best version of who we are whilst growing in gratitude. One of the highlights in our program is our keynote address by a well-known speaker who will be addressing issues on the fourth industrial revolution and career success. Well, that is a topic I can't wait for. If you have a question, like I said, please use the chat room to pose your question and raise your hand so that we can see and attend to your call. You will be receiving a copy of the presentation slides and your CPE points by the end of this coming week. Ladies and gentlemen, the keynote speaker, the moment that we've been waiting for. The keynote speaker will be presenting Rise of the Machines, Keys to Business and Career Success in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. This man is an edtech entrepreneur. He's a founder of the IT Varsity. He also runs two other companies called CompuKids and Xander. He's a software engineer by profession and is also an author, keynote speaker, newspaper columnist, strategic business and education digital transformation advisor. He's an award-winning app developer. His math app Arithmetic won a Vodacom App Store Award in 2012 and he won the MTN App of the Year finalist in 2018. He is also consults a number of educational institutes and businesses on transformation of the fourth industrial revolution. He is a weekly columnist for the Cape Argus, The Star and Daily News. He writes technological trends and education. He has appeared on a number of media platforms such as the SABC3 and SAFM. He has a podcast entitled Tech Watch, which covers the latest developments in technology and social implications. The podcast is available on a number of local and international platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Bilal Kathrada.
Thanks a lot. Thanks so much for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are living in such crazy times. It's unbelievable the times that we are living in and the rate at which technology is progressing. Now, we hear the word disruption being used and abused constantly. And I can give you long explanations about what exactly disruption means. But I think the best way to describe to you what disruption actually is by means of three facts. I don't want to give you a long lecture about what's been written or what exactly is disruption, but just to impress on you exactly how our world is changing, I think these three facts will suffice. Fact number one, did you know the top 3 in-demand jobs this year did not exist 10 years ago? In other words, companies are hiring people to do the types of work today that didn't exist 10 years ago. The job description didn't exist 10 years ago. Now, if you look at some of the job descriptions on the screen, take the word Android. Today, everybody knows Android is the operating system that runs on Samsung devices. But 10 years ago, not many people knew what an Android was. Or those that knew might have said, well, it's a robot. Then look at cloud computing, advanced analytics. These are fairly new job descriptions. And as time goes, we're going to see a whole lot more job descriptions coming out, like machine learning engineer. That job description currently exists, but a year or two ago did not exist. Now, that is an indication of how our world is changing. Third fact, or second fact, did you know 50% of all the jobs in existence today are going to disappear in 10 years' time? In other words, half of all the job descriptions that we are familiar with, that people around the world are doing, are going to be wiped out over the next 10 years. Now, this is not something to be particularly alarmed about, for the simple reason that that is the nature of technology. It takes away certain opportunities and it replaces them with other opportunities. Take, for example, the VCR industry. I don't know when was the last time you saw one of those big old clunky VCR machines. I can't remember when was the last time I saw one. Now think about the industry around the VCR industry, from the VCR players, from manufacturing through distribution, after sales, the entire supply chain. It employed millions of people across the entire supply chain. And then there was an entire industry around those cassettes that used to go into those machines. Now, what happened to that entire industry? It was replaced by CDs and then DVDs, and today, if you want to watch something, it's all about streaming. Everybody is streaming movies these days. So that is the way that technology changes things. Now, the question is, what happened to those millions of people that worked in that industry? Did they die of starvation? No, they moved on to other things. So in 10 years' time, half of the jobs that we are familiar with today are just not going to exist any longer. Fact number 3. Did you know we are going to see more tech innovation in the next decade than we saw in the previous century? Now, this is a tall order. This is a tall claim. And I won't blame you for being a bit incredulous. Really? Can the next decade beat the previous 100 years? And we're not just talking about any 100 years. We're talking about the 20th century, the century that brought us pretty much all the technology that we know about. The internet, mobile devices, everything that we know about was invented in the previous century. Now, scientists are telling us the next decade is going to give us more tech innovation. How is this possible? Let me give you a hint. It's this. In the previous century, we were alone. In the next decade, we are not alone. Who's going to be accompanying us? I'll tell you shortly. Now, all this disruption that's taking place around us, the world is changing around us. What is the major driving force behind it? It's this word on the screen, innovation. All disruption comes from innovation. When we look at history, whenever there were new innovations, things were disrupted, things changed. The world became a different place. Now, what sort of innovations are we talking about here? Now, a lot of people refer to this period of innovation that we are going through as Industry 4.0, or what others call the fourth industrial revolution. But it's something that I prefer to call rise of the machines. Why do I call it rise of the machines? It's simply because machines are starting to do things that were firmly within the domain of human activities before. Things that only humans could do are now being done by machines. And that is incredible. Now let me give you an example. Look at this slide here, all right? We've got the 4 industrial revolutions. We are living through the 4th, and some say there's even a 5th that's coming out. The first one made some changes, steam power, etc. The second one, mass industrialization, assembly lines. The third one, digitization. Up till that point, machines were simply controlled by human beings. They followed instructions. But this 4th industrial revolution, this one is different. This one is different because for the first time, machines don't have to be controlled by us. They don't have to be instructed by human beings. And I'll show you what that means now by means of this artificial intelligence. Now, what exactly is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science. And what it simply means is that it is a branch that itself has sub-branches, and some of these branches are what I'm about to describe. You see, you and I as human beings, we can speak and listen. Just like I'm speaking, you are listening, and not just listening, but you're comprehending. Okay? Now, when you put that ability into machines, it's called speech recognition. So when you talk into your phone, you ask it a question, you do a search, you play a certain soundtrack. That is speech recognition. The next one is the ability to read and write. We read and write as human beings. When we put that into computers, that's known as NLP, natural language processing, not neuro-linguistic programming. That's something else. Moving on, we have the ability to see things and to process. Now, when you put that into computers, that is image processing. So you hold up your iPhone 11 or your iPhone 12 and you look into it, you smile, it unlocks. If it's not you that is holding up the phone, it will not unlock. That is image processing. We can move around fluidly. We have arms and legs and we can move around in the real world. This is known as, I think you guessed it, robotics. We have the ability to see and recognize patterns. This is a field called pattern recognition. And finally, this is the most interesting for me. We have the ability to learn and improve ourselves. And this is called machine learning. This is the most fascinating part of artificial intelligence, the most fascinating field of artificial intelligence. Now, take a look at the screen. What are you seeing here? You're seeing a beautiful, beautiful car, right? But this is the Tesla Model S. And it's remarkable in two ways. One is that it's a fully electric car. But more remarkable than that is that it has the ability to drive by itself. It's a new generation of self-driving cars. Now, how does this car actually work? This is what we call an artificially intelligent cyber-physical system. In other words, it's a robot. It's a machine that has sensors that allow it to see what's happening in the world around it. And based on the inputs from those sensors, it makes decisions using its own built-in artificial intelligence. So this is what our future is going to look like. Now take a look at this gentleman on the screen. Notice his demeanor. Notice how he is sitting there with his head on his palm, and he's looking very stressed and very frustrated. Now he is, and there's a good reason for it. The reason is because he is the world champion at this game that he's playing, and he's getting beaten up in the game. This game is called Go. Now let me tell you something about the game Go. Go is an ancient Chinese game that has been in play for hundreds of years. It's a very simple game to learn. The rules are very simple. But to play the game is extremely complex. It needs creativity. It needs intuition. And scientists say that the number of legal moves in any single game of Go, legal possible moves, is more, now listen to this, take this in, it's more than the total number of atoms in the known universe. Now, we know there's atoms in a droplet of water. We studied that in school, right? In science. And we saw there's a phenomenally large number of atoms in a droplet of water. Now, imagine the number of atoms in the known universe. That is a crazy, unimaginable number. Now, this is the reason that for decades upon decades, scientists could not program a computer to play Go. And they actually just gave up. But some scientists from Google decided to use a different approach. What they did was, they created this computer called Alphago, and they gave it machine learning algorithms. In other words, they taught it how to learn. And then they showed it thousands of games of Go being played. And this machine just observed. It just observed and observed and observed these games being played. And eventually, it actually learned the rules by itself, just by observing. And then it started to do something really creepy. What it did was, it almost split itself into two personalities, and it started to play against itself. So 24/7, all it did was, it played the game by itself, and it became better and better all the time. So then they decided to do some human testing. They didn't expect the machine to beat humans, but it did. Then they got a little ambitious, and they said, well, let's bring in the European champion. What was the odds? The odds are that the champion will beat Alphago. Alphago wiped him out. Next, they says, well, let's bring in this gentleman who is the world champion, and not just that, but the best Go player in known history. Now, this guy is untouchable, well, at least in the human domain. And so they brought him out, and then they put Alphago against him, and they says, well, what are the predictions for this game? The predictions were that Lisa Doll will beat Alphago 4-1. Unfortunately, long story short, Alphago beat him 4-1. At the end of the game, when they interviewed Lee, they asked him how was it. He says it was uncanny playing against this machine, because it was as if it was learning every move of mine and using my own moves and my own strategies against me. Now, this was a momentous period in the history of artificial intelligence, because for the first time we saw that computers are able to learn by themselves without being taught. And not just that, but remember when I said that Go requires a certain amount of creativity and intuition to play? This proved that computers are ultimately able to show some amount of intuition and creativity. And the prospects for the future of artificial intelligence are mind-boggling. And that's why I said earlier that in the previous century, we were alone. In the next decade, we're not going to be alone. We've got artificial intelligence that's going to be helping us with those innovations. And that is the difference. And you know something, when it comes to computers, we know that computers are much faster than human beings. And that's why the innovation, the pace of innovation over the next decade is going to be much faster than what we saw in the previous century. Now, I want to show you a video, right? Just to demonstrate where artificial intelligence has come. Now, while the video or before the video actually starts, I want to talk to you about a thing called the Turin Test. Now, the Turin Test it's actually a test of artificial intelligence. And what it states in simple layman's terms is this, that the way to test if artificial intelligence is actually successful or actually good enough is that a human who is interacting with this artificial intelligence doesn't know that there is an artificially intelligent device that they are interacting with. In other words, they think that they are interacting with a human being. Now watch this movie or this little video and we'll continue afterwards. So now, keeping in mind what I said about the Turin Test, this hairdresser or the receptionist at the hairdressers didn't know that she was talking to a computer. Now, in the near future, you'll be able to say to your phone, make a call for me. And it will make the call, and it won't just dial out, but it will even speak on your behalf. So that's where artificial intelligence has gone. And that is really mind-boggling. Moving on. What do you see on the screen right now? Now, most people will say, well, we're seeing a little supermarket. It looks like a typical Woolworths. But there's something missing in this picture. And what's missing is human beings. And that's because there aren't people working in the store. This is the Amazon Go store that is entirely managed by machines. In fact, the entire store is one artificial intelligence system in itself. So you simply walk into the store through those turnstiles at the start, you scan your phone, and you go and you pick your goods. Every time you pick an item from the shelf and put it into your basket, you'll see on your phone there's a little till slip forming there. And if you take something and put it back onto the shelf, that item is removed. And all you do is you fill up your trolley and you walk out. Now that is what we call artificial intelligence. Now this is not just something that is experimental. These stores are already operating around the United States. Now, look at this slide. The panel on the left is one of my favorite science fiction characters. It's Doc McCoy from the Starship Enterprise in the series Star Trek. Now, that device he's using is known as a medical tricorder. Well, it was known in the Star Trek series as a medical tricorder. Now, this device was really amazing in the sense that if somebody was sick, all the doctor had to do was simply scan their bodies, and he had this little tablet device that he could look at that would give him a complete diagnosis of what exactly is wrong with that person. How cool is that, huh? It would be great if we could have a device like that. Well, here's the news. there is already a device like that, where you can scan a person's body and it would tell you exactly what's wrong with that person. How nice if that device went into production pre-COVID. So all you could do is not just check temperature, but you would be able to actually tell if this person had COVID or not. How cool is that? On the right panel, what you are seeing is the pharmacy of the future. This is a robot pharmacy. This has been in operation at University of California in San Francisco for a number of years now. You simply take your script, you put it on the table, and the robots handle everything else. They dispense the medication to you. Upper middle panel is the surgeon of the future. This one is called Da Vinci. Now, Da Vinci is already in production and it's already in use by a number of hospitals around the country, around the world, in fact. The difference is, in the near future, Da Vinci is not going to be human controlled, but machine controlled. Right now it is human controlled, but in the near future it's going to be machine controlled. And finally, we've got the dentist of the future. You go into this place, you lie down on that chair, it'll do the scan for you, it'll see what's wrong. Do you need a cap? Yes. It'll 3D print the cap for you and install it right there. A robot that will do all of your dental work. How cool is that? Now, this might sound scary to a lot of people. It might sound like, where's the place for human beings now when machines are becoming ever more capable? They're becoming so capable, they are taking things away from us. But trust me when I tell you, from the early 1900s, people had the same concern. When the car was invented and when the car went into mass production, then people says, well, you know, all of these people that sell horses and manage horses and the vets that look after those horses, well, they're going to be out of work. When machines became large scale, when we started seeing these huge factories, what did they say? They said, well, you know, machines are going to replace human beings and we're going to starve to death. But what happened? The world's population doubled and tripled and quadrupled, and yet people found work to do. And that's the thing about technology. Yes, it does take certain opportunities away, but it also creates other opportunities. And that's the great part about technology. And that's a pattern that we're going to see ongoing in the future. But in order to take advantage of those opportunities, we need to prepare ourselves. Because what's different in our time is that machines are now competing directly with us. And we need to become more human than ever before. So I would like to call that time rise of the humans, not rise of the machines. In order for us now to take advantage of those skills, we need 6 of those opportunities. We need these 6 skills. Now, I've been in this game for well over 20 years. And the thing that I found is that these 6 skills are what is going to count in the near future. The first one is mental elasticity. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about describing each one because books have been written on each one of these topics. But the first one is mental elasticity, the ability to embrace new ideas. Next, creativity. Now, when I say creativity, I don't mean art and graphics. That's part of creativity. But creativity is a lot bigger than that. Next, problem solving, the ability to solve problems. Now, Elon Musk put it very nicely. He says, you are paid in accordance to the size of the problems that you solve. The bigger the problems you solve, the more you get paid. So we need to learn problem-solving skills because there are always going to be problems. And those that find solutions to those problems are the ones that are going to be successful in the future. They are the ones that were successful in the past. Moving on. The next one is people skills. We need, this is the irony that as much as we are afraid of machines, we don't know how to interact with each other as human beings. So we're going to need more of that. Next, critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is the ability to look at the world around you, find out or see what's wrong with this world and ask why. Why is the world the way it is? And what can I do to change it? Now, let me give you an easy example, right? We're all familiar with ship containers. Now, about 80 years ago, there was no such thing as ship containers. All you had was this huge storeroom in a ship where they would just go and dump goods. But one gentleman asked the question, why? Why is it like this? Why is it such a tedious and cumbersome process to load and offload ships? How nice if there was a modular system that we could use to pre-pack goods into these little boxes and load the boxes onto the ships. And with that idea, the world of shipping containers was invented. And finally, tech skills. There's no getting away that we all need to become digital natives. We all need to embrace technology skills. Now, the problem is, in South Africa, we have a challenge in that we are not preparing our kids from the earliest age to embrace these skills. And we're going to end up in a situation like this computer that you're seeing on the screen. This is one of the early Xerox machines. This was invented around about 1965. And what's great about this very odd-looking computer with the longitudinal screen, you would say, is that this machine was the first computer to have a graphical interface. Now, you know Windows and Mac machines, how they operate with the little icons and the mouse pointer. This was the first of its kind. But the manufacturers of this machine, the inventors of this machine, didn't see its value, and they just parked it into a museum and they left it there. Along comes a brilliant young entrepreneur by the name of Steve Jobs. And he saw this machine, and he saw its interface, and he embraced the idea. He saw the potential of it, he embraced it, and he, with permission from the owners, he made it a part of the Mac computers, and the rest was history. Now, in South Africa, we've got millions and millions of youth that don't realize their own potential. Why? Because they are not being taught these skills. We're still teaching skills that are over 100 years old. Let me give you another example. What are you seeing on the screen right now? This looks like a kid's playground, right? But this is actually a marvel of technology. This is one of the most advanced MRI scanners in the world. Now, the designer of this MRI scanner is a man by the name of Doug Dietz. He used to work for GE, and that's the company that built this. It's a marvel of technology. But the problem was that the people that it was intended for were terrified of it. When Doug Dietz went to a kid's hospital and he saw the machine in use, he noticed something odd. He noticed that the nurses were anesthetizing the kids. They were knocking them out just so that they could use this machine. So he asked the nurse, but why are you doing this? I mean, you don't need anesthetic to use an MRI scanner. She says, well, what can I do? The kids are terrified of this machine. And to make it easier for them to use it, we simply knock them out. So he went back to his team and he says, well, guys, it seems we failed. We didn't produce what we wanted to produce. We didn't produce a product for the market it was intended for. So they went back, long story short, and they applied these 6 skills: problem solving, creativity. You can see it all in here. A mindset that was open to change. I mean, they didn't hold on to this idea and say, well, we spent millions of dollars on this device and there's no way we're changing it. They embraced the idea and they made the change, and they brought up this. This machine not only looks like a kiddie's playground, but they even invented a narration around this. So when the child would enter this, the nurse would say, welcome aboard, you're entering this pirate ship, etc. And then it became an experience. Now, that is what these skills bring. It's not just the technology, but it's the human aspect that is going to mesh with technology in the future to create success. Now, the question is, in my conclusion, what do we do as human beings? What do we do to get ready? How do we get these 6 skills? And how do we prepare ourselves for this amazing future, this uncertain future? Well, the answer is simple. RACE, R-A-C-E. Now, this is an acronym. You know, we IT people love acronyms, right? The first one is read, learn, and update. Constantly learn and update. Next, anticipate problems and opportunities. Next, create solutions. When you find a problem, create a solution. Monetize that solution, and you can be successful. Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook because he had a problem. And the problem was, he was a nerd who was too shy to meet girls, so he came up with a solution. A website called The Facebook, where he put a picture of himself and all of his likes and dislikes, and he put it out there. Problem, solution. And now he's one of the wealthiest people in the world. But what did Mark Zuckerberg do? It didn't seem like a very good solution at the time, but the main thing was he executed on his plan. He didn't talk about it, he didn't think about it, he executed. And this is how we are going to succeed in the future. If we are going to be the next entrepreneurs of the future, if we're going to succeed in our careers, this is what we're going to need. And with those few words, ladies and gentlemen, I will stop. And if you have any questions, I will take your questions. In the meantime, these are my contact details. Now, please do not take a photo of the screen. Just go to the social media and smash those follow buttons. I'd like to have more and more followers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Kathrada. That was actually very informative and insightful. There are some questions that came in. Firstly, there's a question or a statement: will artificial intelligence take over the field of auditing? How will it impact auditors? You want a direct answer, or you want a sugar-coated answer? I think it would be best if we could get a direct answer.
The direct answer is that artificial intelligence is already taking over the field of auditing. What is going to be the role of auditors in the future? I'm not really sure. It's something that we can apply our minds to and really think about.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
The next question is, or rather a statement that was made by Elon Musk. He said that artificial intelligence is more dangerous than nuclear weapons. What is your take, and how can one prevent this?
Okay, that's actually a very good point. I mean, that is one of the major fears around artificial intelligence, that it's dangerous. But let me take you back to a movie that came out when I was a kid, the Terminator movies, right? In the Terminator movies, the human beings gave control of their nuclear arsenals to an artificial intelligence system, which suddenly became sentient and turned against its creators. Now, what was wrong with that scenario? The thing that was wrong with the scenario is that we put too much of faith into artificial intelligence and we gave it too much of power. Now, whether or not artificial intelligence becomes a danger to us or not depends on how much of freedom and flexibility we give it and how much of power we give it. If we give it too much of power, obviously there is a chance that it might not use that power as expected. And obviously when you look at Asimov's rules, you can Google it up, Asimov's rules around artificial intelligence, if the machines are governed by Asimov's rules, then we shouldn't have too much to worry about. At the same time, I just want to caution that even though Elon Musk is one of the most brilliant entrepreneurs of our times, what he's saying is a potential future. He's not saying that this is what is going to be. I mean, his company uses artificial intelligence a whole lot. We need to look more at the positives of AI. Imagine AI being used to diagnose illnesses and to find cures. Imagine if we could get AI to find a cure for COVID. I think a few companies were actually doing that. Or AI as a means to prevent accidents or to solve some of the world's most pressing problems. AI has the potential. In fact, there's a report that was released by IBM, I think it was last year. I actually wrote a couple of articles about it, where AI is going to be used to end the world's food shortage. That's amazing. That's really, really impressive when you think about what AI is capable of. So in a nutshell, yes, there are the dangers, but there are also benefits. And we can't afford to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Thank you, sir. One last question. If you had advice for the young people of our country, what would you say to them, and where do they start?
Good question. Do we have another 2 hours?
No, please.
Because that's my passion. The young people of this country are my passion. That's my livelihood. That's what I do at IT Varsity, to empower our young people. And my advice to them would be, and it's not just them, but it's the policymakers, it's the schools and the teachers and everyone that has an influence on the lives of these young people, is this: prepare them for today. shed the old ideas, shed the old curriculums, and prepare our kids for what is happening today and the future. These 6 skills that I spoke about, those are what is required, number one. Secondly, don't become obsessed with any career or any ideas, because things are changing so fast, you might be forced to give up those and embrace something new. So have that elastic mindset. And finally, this is the most important for me. Don't be afraid of what technology is going to do. Rather, embrace technology and look for solutions to dominate or to enter the world of IT. Let me give you an example, right? As much as the global formal employment sector is on a decline, we know it's on a decline, and it's partly due rather to technology streamlining, companies becoming more efficient and letting people go. But here's the good news. The flip side of that coin is that the global IT services sector is on an increase, and it's going up and up and up. Now, countries like Singapore, India, Finland, United States, they've taken advantage of this, and they've established themselves as IT outsourcing hubs. Now, if our youth can be equipped with the skills and the attitudes to take advantage of this ever-growing market, then that will be such an excellent thing. And what they need to do, and it doesn't mean that everybody needs to become an IT professional. What they need to do is to embrace their passion, but marry that with technology skills, and that's how they will find success. If you look at some of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the past, they had other passions, they had other skills that they brought to the table, and then combining those skills with technology, they became successful.
Thank you so much, sir. We have another question or two on the live chats. So I see there's 2 questions from Leilani and Zulfika. I think we'll first give Leilani an opportunity. If you don't mind, Leilani, would you unmute yourself and just take the floor?
Bilal, thank you. Very insightful presentation. Zulfika is the name. I have a particular concern around the education and the system that we offer our very, very young pupils at primary school going into high school level. And I was just wondering what kind of interventions, what kind of programs can we embark on as parents and seeing our kids develop to influence the schooling in our country, given the limitations and the boundaries and all those kind of boundaries that are in place. What can we do to gear them up for the future and to get ready for this new world that we are facing, and give them the right skills and competencies?
Brilliant question, and I come back to the same thing. Do we have 2 hours more that I could speak, or can I speak till tomorrow morning?
Not today, sir.
Okay, again, Zulfikar, you touched on my passion. My passion is education and empowerment of our youth. In a nutshell, I think this is not yet happening. Although there is a vision, there is a lot of you can see there's a growing amount of willpower from the side of government. But at the moment, we're going to have to do this ourselves, starting at a parent level and then hopefully on a school level. If we can start as parents and then get our schools to play a role. Now, I'm going to give you my personal example. I've always been a tech lover. I mean, I've been coding since 1980 when my dad bought me a Commodore 64 computer, which I still own, by the way. And my kids grew up in an environment of technology. So they kind of are more digital native than most digital natives, because, I mean, growing up in a house where the head of the home is a techno geek himself, it's hard not to become a techno geek yourself. And I noticed towards high school, grade 8 and 9, that my kids are getting more and more involved in technology. And for me, that was a great thing. But I also noticed something else, that even though they were involved in technology, I found that they were going in completely different paths. My eldest son was getting more into coding, my middle son was getting more into game design, and my youngest was, yes, technology in a way, but he was more into movie making and videos and things. So I, as a parent, I gave them extracurricular activities to do. And I says, well, look, you guys are keen on technology. Here's some courses that you can do online. And I enabled them. I opened the road for them to find their passion in technology. Rather than forcing them into it, I helped them find their passion through online resources. So we did lots of extracurricular activities, and they absolutely loved it. And they blossomed in it. And, you know, my eldest son went on to become an award-winning app developer, just like his old man. And, you know, my middle son is pursuing his game design. My youngest, he wants to be the next Steven Spielberg, because he loves telling stories. And now he's telling visual stories. And for me, that is immensely gratifying. It's, you know, they did get their education, but on top of that, layered on top of that, I was able to create these opportunities for them to grow into the spaces that they are in right now. And at a very young age, and I'm grateful for that, from such a young age, they've already found their passion and they are growing with it. So my advice to any parent is this: don't wait for the school or for the system or for the government or for something else. Do it yourself. There's countless resources out there. And the best part is I did this with them. So it became a family activity, and it was immensely enjoyable. It became a family bonding activity, and my boys found their way. So that was my personal example, and that's the advice I would give to anybody.